As the ancient relic pulsed with an eerie glow, Commander Erin stood at the edge of the excavation site, the dust of Earth's forgotten past swirling around her. The relic, uncovered deep beneath the ruins of what was once a sprawling city, had been dormant for centuries. Now it seemed to awaken, its dark stone surface etched with cryptic symbols that hummed with a strange, almost sentient energy. Erin's fingers hovered above the control panel, her heart pounding in sync with the relic's newfound pulse. "Commander, you need to see this," one of her crew members, Dr. Lena Harris, called out from the nearby workbench. She was staring at a data screen, her face pale. The message, "It's not just an artifact. It's a map." Erin walked over, the weight of her boots crunching over broken stone, and leaned in to study the screen. The message was indeed far more than just a set of symbols. It was an encrypted map that led to something much larger. A massive complex hidden under the surface of Earth, its exact location unknown for millennia. "A map to what?" Erin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lena swallowed, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. "To the forgotten prime." A cold shiver ran down Erin's spine. She'd heard legends about the prime. A lost power, one spoken of only in the darkest corners of human history. Some said it was an ancient weapon of unimaginable destruction. Others believed it was a source of untold knowledge, capable of reshaping the galaxy. Either way, whoever controlled it would wield power beyond belief. "Commander," another voice interrupted, a warning laced with urgency. Sergeant Jax, her second in command, came rushing over, his face tense. "We've got a problem." Erin turned sharply, her instincts kicking in. She knew that tone. The alien empire known as the Kraith had been a threat to humanity for years. But until now, they had been content to observe from the shadows. This was no ordinary sighting. "Where?" Erin demanded, stepping toward the base's security console. The holographic map flickered to life, showing the surrounding area. A few red blips moved swiftly, converging on their location. "Here," Jax pointed to a cluster of dots on the map. "They're not just scouting us. They're coming in hot." Erin's mind raced. The Kraith had been known for their ruthless efficiency and relentless pursuit of any power that could shift the balance of the galaxy. If they had discovered the relic's activation, the time for subtlety was over. It was no longer just a race to uncover the power. It was a battle for survival. "Get to the command center." "Now," Erin ordered. She activated her comm, alerting her other officers. "Everyone, prepare for immediate departure. We're under attack." The team scrambled into action, but Erin couldn't shake the feeling of dread settling in her chest. She knew the Kraith's presence here was no coincidence. They had been waiting for this moment, waiting for Earth to unlock the key to the Forgotten Prime. As the first sirens blared across the compound, Erin glanced one last time at the relic. She couldn't ignore the pull of its power, but she also couldn't ignore the reality of the war that was about to erupt. The Kraith were no longer just looking for an artifact. They were hunting humanity's future. The war for the Forgotten Prime had just begun. The air was thick with the sound of alarms and hurried footsteps as Commander Erin and her team made their way through the underground base. The once quiet halls now echoed with a sense of urgency, the soft hum of machinery replaced by the clatter of soldiers preparing for battle. Erin's mind, however, wasn't on the preparations. Her thoughts were consumed by the relic, the ancient power they had just unlocked. She had no doubt the Kraith would be coming for it. But what if they already knew more than they were letting on? "Commander, we're receiving strange transmissions." Lieutenant Sarah's voice crackled over the comms. "Encrypted signals. It's like they know what we found." Erin clenched her jaw. The Kraith were known for their superior technology and intelligence-gathering capabilities. If they had been monitoring Earth for any length of time, they would have anticipated this moment, anticipated the unlocking of the Prime. "Can you decode it?" Erin asked, her pace quickening as they reached the command center. The heavy steel door slid open with a hiss, revealing a swarm of officers already at work. The atmosphere was tense, with soldiers suiting up for a conflict that could decide the fate of humanity. Sarah's voice was tight with frustration. Not yet. But these aren't the usual Kraith transmission patterns. This is something different. Something old. Erin's stomach dropped. Old. Ancient. Sarah confirmed. Whatever they're sending, it's not just a communication. It's like they're calling something. Erin's fingers tightened around the railing in front of her as she considered the implications. The relic was more than just a map. It was a beacon, a signal to something deeper, something buried beneath the earth, and the Kraith were already on their way. "We don't have much time," Erin said, turning to face her second-in-command. "Get everyone ready to move. We need to secure the relic before they reach us." Jax gave a curt nod, rallying the troops with practiced ease. "You heard the commander. Move out." Erin watched as her soldiers quickly formed ranks and began preparing the base for the impending battle. She was grateful for their discipline, but her mind was far from the tactical concerns. The relic's activation had set something in motion, a chain of events that couldn't be undone. And now, the Kraith were only a fraction of the threat they faced. The real danger lay in what the relic had awakened beneath Earth's surface. "Commander," Sarah's voice returned. "I think I've got something." Erin moved swiftly to her officer's station, where a large screen flickered to life. Lines of strange data flowed across the screen, forming complex algorithms and codes. "Whatever it is, it's tied to the Prime," Sarah said, tapping a series of commands. "It's a deep-level signal. It's calling out to something in Earth's core." Erin's heart skipped a beat. "What's down there?" "I don't know yet," Sarah answered, eyes wide with disbelief. "But it's big, really big, and it's starting to respond." A sudden jolt shook the base, followed by a series of distant rumbles. The ground trembled, and Erin's eyes shot to the windows. Far below, a brilliant blue light erupted from the depths of Earth's crust, lighting up the night sky like a second sun. The awakening of the forgotten Prime had begun, and with it, the long-buried power that humanity was never meant to unleash. The Kraith weren't just after the relic. They were after what lay. The rumble beneath the base grew louder, sending tremors through the walls and floors. Erin gripped the railing tightly as the entire compound seemed to shudder in response to the surge of energy emanating from the Earth's core. Outside, the sky was ablaze with the eerie, otherworldly glow, casting strange shadows across the barren landscape. The relic was no longer just an artifact. It was a key, and whatever it was unlocking, humanity was about to witness firsthand. "Commander, we need to move." Jax's voice cut through the chaos, his face hard with determination. "The Kraith are already en route. If we don't act now, they'll be here before we're ready." Erin's gaze lingered on the shimmering light outside, its intensity blinding even from within the safety of the command center. The ground shook again, stronger this time, and the lights flickered. The energy from the relic was destabilizing everything in its path. "Right," Erin said, snapping out of her thoughts. "Prepare a team for extraction. We need to get to the site immediately." "We've got an issue," Sarah interjected, her voice laced with urgency. "The signal's not just reaching the Kraith. It's triggering something else, something much older. It's like the planet itself is reacting. There's a massive energy field emanating from the core." Erin's heart skipped a beat. The forgotten Prime was more than a relic. It was a conduit to something buried deep within Earth's very foundation. The question now was what exactly had been hidden there for so long, and why was the planet reacting as if it were alive? "Can we disable the signal?" Erin asked, her voice steady despite the rising tension in the room. Sarah shook her head. "The network is too vast, Commander. We can't shut it off. We can only follow it, and pray that we're ready for whatever it brings." Erin's mind raced as she processed the situation. The Kraith were relentless. If they were already aware of the relic's significance, they wouldn't waste time in their pursuit. They'd want to control it, and the power it might unlock, for themselves. But the unknown energy surging from Earth's depths was an entirely new variable. "How much time do we have?" Erin asked, her voice low. Sarah's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her eyes scanning the data. "It's hard to say. The signal is escalating exponentially. We're looking at hours, maybe less, before we hit critical mass." Erin's fists clenched. The implications of that were clear. Either they would control whatever was rising from the Earth's core, or the Kraith would. And given their history, it was unlikely the Kraith would allow humanity to wield such power. "We move now," Erin ordered, her voice sharp. "Get the teens ready. I'll be at the site in 30 minutes. We secure the relic and investigate what's beneath. If the Kraith think they're the only ones with a claim to this power, they're about to learn otherwise." Jax nodded, giving his troops a sharp order to begin prepping for immediate departure. The rest of the team quickly fell into action, gathering gear, weapons, and supplies, all with the same singular focus: survive and gain control of the power that was shaking the very planet beneath their feet. As Erin made her way to the vehicle bay, her thoughts flickered back to the signal and the strange energy emanating from the core. The Kraith were coming, and time was running out. But what if Earth wasn't just a passive player in this battle? What if the power hidden beneath its surface wasn't just something to control, but something to awaken, something that could change the course of humanity's future forever? Erin could feel it now, something ancient, something primordial, calling out through the cracks in the Earth's foundation. And she wasn't the only one who heard it. Erin and her team raced across the rugged terrain in armored transports, the base fading behind them as they headed toward the excavation site. The distant glow from the Earth's core still pulsed like a second sun, casting an unnatural light over the barren landscape. The ground continued to tremble, but Erin couldn't afford to be distracted by the planet's violent reactions. The clock was ticking, and with every passing second, the Kraith were getting closer. "Commander," Jax's voice crackled over the comms, "we've got Kraith scouts incoming. They're about 15 clicks out, but they're moving fast." Erin's fingers clenched around the controls of the transport. "We won't let them get any closer. We need to secure the site and figure out what's happening down there before they arrive." The convoy continued at full speed, kicking up clouds of dust and debris as they raced toward the location of the relic. Erin's mind was a blur of calculations: how to secure the site, how to understand the ancient power awakening beneath them, how to ensure humanity would control it rather than the Kraith. As they neared the excavation zone, the earth beneath them buckled, sending a shockwave of energy through the air. The transport jolted violently, throwing soldiers to the floor, and Erin's grip tightened as the craft stabilized. "What the hell was that?" Jax's voice echoed in her earpiece, though his tone was edged with disbelief. The glow intensified, now blinding in its intensity, and Erin knew they had reached the site. She could see the excavation pit now, the ancient stone edifice that housed the relic, but the ground around it was cracked open, a massive chasm yawning into the planet's depths. The relic itself sat atop a pedestal, still humming with power, but it was no longer the only thing drawing energy from the core. The entire area seemed to be feeding off the ancient pulse, the rock around them shifting and groaning as if alive. "We need to get down there," Erin said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Secure the perimeter. Dr. Harris, start analyzing the relic. Find out what's causing all of this." Dr. Harris, who had been stationed at the rear of the convoy, nodded, her face pale but determined. She hurried toward the relic, her instruments scanning it for any changes. Erin followed closely, scanning the area for threats. The Kraith scouts were closing in, and there was no telling how far the reach of the ancient power beneath them extended. The ground quaked again, more violently this time, and Erin stumbled as the earth itself seemed to shift. The relic's glow pulsed brighter, and with it, the air seemed to vibrate with an almost otherworldly hum. "Commander," Dr. Harris called out, her voice shaky, "I don't know what this is. It's not just a map. It's a beacon. a signal to something beneath the earth. And I think it's awakening. Erin's eyes narrowed. Awakening? What do you mean, awakening? The ground split with an ear-splitting crack, and before anyone could react, a massive structure began to emerge from the chasm below. The earth groaned, and a towering edifice, something ancient, metallic, and covered in strange, intricate patterns, rose from the depths. It wasn't just a relic. It was a structure, an ancient city, buried for millennia, now stirring to life. The signal was not just calling to the surface. It was pulling the very structure from Earth's core. And in the distance, the Kraith scouts were nearly upon them. Erin's heart raced as she realized the enormity of what they had uncovered. The Forgotten Prime wasn't merely an artifact. It was the tip of a buried civilization, and the Kraith were not the only ones coming for it. The race for control had just escalated, and the battle for Earth's future had begun. Erin's breath caught in her chest as the colossal structure emerged from the depths, its silhouette blocking out the unnaturally bright glow from the core. It was no mere artifact. This was a vast, ancient city, its surface covered in alien glyphs and metallic layers that seemed to pulse with the same energy as the relic above. The ground trembled once more as massive, spiraling tendrils of energy shot up from the city's core, radiating outward and forming an intricate lattice of glowing lines that spread beneath the surface of the earth like a web. "Commander, we got company." Jax's voice echoed over the comms, urgent and alarmed. "The Kraith scouts are closing in on our position. They're almost here." Erin turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. The Kraith were relentless, and they had already proven how dangerous they could be when they had the advantage. Now they were moments away from securing the site, or worse, from taking control of the newly awakened power beneath their feet. "We'll hold them off," Erin said, her voice calm but resolute. "But we need to get to the center of that city. Dr. Harris, is there any way we can use the relic to access it?" Dr. Harris, who had been studying the relic with her instruments, hesitated. Her eyes were wide with awe and fear. "I think it's connected to the city, some sort of control mechanism. But I can't be sure. The energy coming from it, it's overwhelming. It's almost as if it's alive." Erin's gaze shifted to the massive structure rising from the earth, its surface now shimmering with intense energy. The city itself seemed to be reacting to the relic, as if drawing power from it. But what would happen if they didn't act fast? The Kraith would be upon them, and they would stop at nothing to take control of this power. "We don't have much time," Erin said firmly. "Get ready to move. We'll have to push forward and secure the city. Jax, take your squad and defend the perimeter. Dr. Harris, I need you to guide us into the center." Jax gave a sharp nod, his face set with determination as he rallied his soldiers. "You heard the commander. Move out." Erin watched as her team spread out, weapons ready, forming a defensive line around the excavation site. But her thoughts kept drifting back to the city. What it was, what it contained, and why it had remained buried for so long. It was clear now that the relic had been more than just a map. It had been a beacon, calling out to something hidden beneath Earth's surface. Dr. Harris hurried forward, her instruments flashing with readings as she moved closer to the ancient city. "I think I've found the entrance," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "The signal's leading me here. It's some kind of portal." Erin's eyes narrowed as she followed Harris to the base of the city. At the center of the structure, there was a massive, circular opening, glowing with the same energy as the relic. The ground around it shimmered, as if alive with ancient power. Harris's instruments pulsed with an almost feverish intensity as she approached the portal. "This is it," Harris said, her voice reverberating with excitement. "This is how we enter the city. But we need to synchronize the relic's energy with this portal. If we don't, we'll never get in." Erin stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the portal. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Whatever was inside, whatever this city held, could change everything for humanity. but it could also bring about their destruction if the Kraith reached it first. "We synchronize it," Erin said with unwavering determination. "We're not letting the Kraith take this from us." The team moved quickly, and as Harris began the delicate process of connecting the relic's power to the portal, Erin's thoughts flashed back to the messages Sarah had intercepted earlier, the encrypted transmissions, the ancient signal. The Kraith knew something they didn't, and whatever it was, they were already on their way. The sound of engines in the distance reminded Erin that time was rapidly running out. "Commander, they're here," Jax's voice warned, his tone tense. "The Kraith are just on the horizon. We need to move. Now." With a final surge of power, the portal hummed, and the ground trembled beneath them. The city's entrance flared to life, its ancient doors slowly opening to reveal the dark expanse within. "This is it," Erin said, drawing her weapon and stepping forward. "Let's find out what's waiting for us." And with that, the team descended into the unknown, the Kraith closing in on their every move. Erin's heart hammered in her chest as she stepped through the portal, the ground beneath her feet shifting in ways that defied understanding. The team followed closely behind, each of them gripped by the unknown dangers waiting inside the ancient city. The air within the portal was thick with energy, crackling with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of Erin's neck stand up. It was as though they had crossed into another world entirely, one where the laws of nature didn't apply. The interior of the city was vast, far larger than Erin had anticipated. Towering structures made of strange, iridescent materials stretched into the shadows, casting long, sharp angles across the floor. A faint hum echoed from the depths of the city, reverberating through the walls like the pulse of a sleeping giant. The glow of the relic still resonated in Erin's hand, its energy guiding her through the labyrinth of corridors. "We need to find the central chamber," Dr. Harris said, her voice steady despite the palpable tension in the air. "This whole city is connected. There's a central hub where all the power is controlled. If we can reach it, we might be able to understand what this place really is." Erin nodded, her eyes scanning the dark corridors. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional distant sound that could have been footsteps or something else. She wasn't sure if they were alone here, but the feeling of being watched persisted, an unsettling presence lurking just out of sight. As they moved deeper into the city, the energy from the relic grew more intense, the pulsing hum resonating within their bones. Erin's mind raced with questions. What was this city? Who had built it? And why had it been hidden for so long beneath the surface of Earth? Suddenly, the sound of movement ahead caught her attention. She held up a fist, signaling the team to stop. Her soldiers fell silent, weapons raised, as they pressed into the shadows. The humming grew louder, and in the distance, a figure appeared, tall, armored, and radiating an aura of power. It was not human, that much was clear. The figure stood motionless, gazing into the distance as though waiting for something. Erin motioned for Jax to take the lead, and the squad silently advanced, stepping carefully over the ancient, glowing glyphs etched into the floor. But as they drew closer to the figure, it turned, its eyes locking onto Erin's. A chill ran down her spine as it spoke, its voice echoing in her mind rather than in the air. "You have awakened the Prime," it said in a language Erin couldn't understand. Yet somehow, the meaning was clear. The Prime, the source of the power. It wasn't just a relic, it was a trigger. And now that it had been activated, the entire city was coming alive. The figure raised its hand, and the walls of the city began to tremble. Shards of metal and stone cracked away from the surface, revealing hidden machinery, dormant and now springing to life. Erin took a step back, her pulse racing. "Who are you?" Erin demanded, her voice steady despite the confusion and fear creeping into her thoughts. The figure tilted its head, as though considering the question. "We are the custodians. We have guarded the Prime for eons. You have disturbed its slumber. Now you must face the consequences." The ground beneath them shook violently, and the city's deep, resonating hum turned into a deafening roar. The walls began to move, the floors shifting, and Aaron realized with a sickening clarity that the entire city was reacting to their presence. The custodian didn't make a move, but its gaze was unwavering. "Everyone, get ready," Aaron shouted, drawing her weapon and preparing for whatever was coming. The soldiers fell into formation around her, weapons aimed at the figure. But it didn't move, at least not yet. A deep rumbling filled the air as the very city seemed to stir, its dormant systems coming online. Massive doors slid open, revealing enormous chambers filled with towering alien machines. The relic in Aaron's hand hummed louder, its glow brightening, as though it were drawing energy from the city itself. Then, as the custodian spoke again, the weight of its words hit Aaron like a physical blow. "The Prime is awake. You cannot control what you have unleashed." Before Aaron could respond, the city's energy surged, and the ground split open beneath them. Massive alien constructs began to rise from the depths, their mechanical limbs whirring into motion. They were more than machines. They were sentinels, each one towering over the team with weapons of unimaginable power. "Fall back," Aaron shouted, but it was too late. The custodian had already activated the defenses. The battle had begun. The ground trembled as the first of the towering sentinels rose from the depths, its massive limbs moving with unnatural precision. Aaron's breath caught in her throat as she watched the machine's glowing eyes focus on her team. The air was thick with tension, the humming energy from the city swirling around them like a storm. "Move! Move!" Aaron yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos as she snapped her weapon into place. The soldiers scattered, taking cover behind the ancient structures as they fired at the advancing sentinels. The energy weapons from their rifles barely scratched the surface of the hulking machines, which continued to advance with relentless purpose. Jax led a group to the left, using his agility to stay ahead of the sentinels' targeting systems. But it was clear, this wasn't just a fight for survival. The machines were not only powered by the city's ancient energy, they were linked to it. Each shot they fired seemed to feed more power into the structures, causing the walls to pulse and vibrate violently. "Commander, we can't stop them." Jax's voice was tight with desperation as he ducked behind cover. "We need to find a way to disable the power source." Aaron's eyes scanned the chaos, the pulse of energy from the relic growing ever stronger. The city's heart was beating, and with each thrum, the sentinels grew stronger, their movements more fluid, their power more destructive. "Dr. Harris," Aaron shouted, trying to make herself heard over the deafening noise of battle. "Is there any way to shut down the city's core? Can you override the system?" Harris was moving swiftly through the chaos, her focus on the ancient terminal that she had located on the far side of the chamber. It seemed to be the only source of interaction with the city's power systems, a network of alien controls that hummed with an eerie, sentient rhythm. "I think so," she shouted back, her voice strained. "But I'll need a few minutes to access the core. It's heavily encrypted." Aaron nodded sharply. "We don't have a few minutes. Keep moving, and stay protected." The team pushed forward, firing relentlessly at the sentinels, but the machines were relentless. One by one, their shots barely fazed the towering giants, who retaliated with devastating force. Blasts of energy cut through the air, narrowly missing Aaron as she took cover behind a fallen pillar. The air was thick with dust and the acrid scent of burning metal. "We're being overwhelmed," said Lieutenant Kira, her voice strained. "The sentinels. There's too many of them." Erin's mind raced as she watched more sentinels rising from the depths, their massive forms emerging from the dark chasms beneath the city. The number of machines seemed endless, and their power was too great. She could feel the city itself reacting, a pulse of energy that hummed through the ground beneath her. It was as if the city was alive, watching, feeding off their desperation. "Commander, we need a plan." Jax's voice was urgent, his gunfire unrelenting. Erin's thoughts raced, piecing together fragments of information, memories of old Earth legends, of ancient technologies spoken of in whispers. The power source, the heart of the city, was somewhere in the core, hidden beneath layers of defenses. But how to get there? The Sentinels weren't the only problem. The city itself was a living, breathing entity, protecting its secrets. "Dr. Harris, you've got to move faster," Erin said, determination hardening her voice. "We need to shut this down before it's too late." Harris was already at the terminal, her fingers flying over the alien interface. The glow from the relic in Erin's hand flickered in sync with the pulses from the terminal. For a brief moment, the ground shook violently, and a massive energy surge erupted from the core. The Sentinels paused, momentarily stunned by the energy shift. Then, the city seemed to respond to their signal. The hum of power deepened, the machines pausing in a synchronized motion. Erin's heart raced. Was it working? Was Harris finding a way to shut it all down? Then, without warning, the Sentinels began to glow brighter, their energy surging. They were adapting to the change. "No," Harris shouted, her voice frantic. "They're overriding the system. We can't stop them from reconnecting." Erin's mind raced as she sprinted forward, pushing her team to hold the line. There was no more time for hesitation. The fight had escalated from a battle for survival to a race against an unstoppable force. With the Sentinels regaining their strength and the city's power coursing through the walls, the odds of success seemed impossible. But Erin wasn't ready to surrender, not now. Not when humanity's future was on the line. "We fight until the end," Erin yelled, her voice ringing out as the Sentinels began to advance again. "For Earth. For our future." With a surge of energy, the team renewed their assault, knowing full well that the final push was upon them. Their survival depended on it. The ground trembled beneath Erin's feet as the Sentinels advanced with terrifying precision, their massive forms looming over the team. The city around them seemed to pulse with malevolent intent, the air thick with the hum of energy. Erin's breath was steady, but her heart raced. They were running out of time. The city, the Sentinels, and the Prime all seemed to be working in unison, an unstoppable force bent on their destruction. "We can't hold them off forever," Jack shouted as he ducked behind cover, his energy rifle overheating from constant fire. The air crackled with the sounds of weapons discharging and explosions ripping through the chamber. "We don't have forever," Erin replied, her voice tight with determination. She glanced toward Harris, who was still working furiously at the terminal, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. Sweat beaded on Harris's brow as she struggled to bypass the encryption that had begun to resist their every move. "It's not enough," Harris panted, her voice strained. "The Sentinels are using the city's own power to protect themselves. If I don't break through soon, they'll regain full control and we won't have a chance." Erin clenched her fists. There had to be something they could do. The stakes had never been higher, and the weight of humanity's survival pressed heavily on her shoulders. As she scanned the chamber, her eyes caught a flicker of movement. More Sentinels were emerging from the depths, their weapons ready, their mission clear. They were to wipe out every last member of the team. Erin turned to her soldiers. "Form up. We're pushing forward." Without hesitation, the team fell into formation, charging toward the heart of the city. Energy blasts and debris filled the air as they sprinted, their footsteps echoing in the hollow chamber. Erin's mind raced. Every decision mattered now, every action. The Sentinels were relentless, but they were not invincible. If they could get to the core, if they could destroy the city's central power system, they could stop the machines. But how? Suddenly, a thought struck her. The relic in her hand. Its power had been growing ever since they entered the city, sensing with the environment around them. It was more than just a key. It was the catalyst. Erin's grip tightened around the relic, and she felt the pulse of its energy surge through her. It wasn't just a power source. It was a weapon. "Cover me," she shouted to her team as she made a dash toward the central chamber. where the heart of the city's power lay hidden. The Sentinel's energy beams sliced through the air, but Erin moved with a speed born of desperation. She had no time to think, only to act. The relic hummed louder, its energy growing stronger as she neared the chamber. The massive doors slid open before her, revealing a vast, glowing core at the center of the room. The heart of the city, the source of everything. Erin didn't hesitate. She raised the relic high, channeling every ounce of her energy into it. The power surged through her, amplifying her resolve, her strength. The relic's glow intensified, matching the pulse of the core. In that moment, Erin understood. The city was not just alive. It was sentient, and it feared the relic. As the sentinels closed in around her, their weapons aimed and ready, Erin released the energy. A blinding light exploded from the relic, cascading through the room like a shockwave. The sentinels froze, their metal bodies seizing up as the energy enveloped them. The ground shook violently as the entire city seemed to groan in pain. The ancient machines screeched, their internal systems breaking down as the power coursed through them, tearing at their very essence. The city trembled, its foundations cracking as if something deep within it had been awakened. The energy that had once flowed seamlessly between the sentinels and the core was now out of balance. Erin's vision blurred, but she held firm. She had to finish it. They had to finish it. With one final push, the relic unleashed a devastating surge, and the entire city erupted in a brilliant explosion of light. The shockwave knocked Erin off her feet, sending her tumbling across the ground. Her ears rang as the world around her shook, the hum of energy that had once filled the air now replaced by an eerie silence. Erin struggled to her feet, her vision swimming, but she could see it. The sentinels had collapsed, their bodies smoking and still. The city itself seemed to be falling apart, its once impenetrable power now shattered. And then, as if the universe had decided to take pity on them, a sudden calm fell over the chamber. The machines were down. The city was dying. But the fight was over. "We did it," Harris said, breathless, standing beside Erin, her eyes wide with disbelief. Erin took a deep breath, her heart still racing, but there was a flicker of triumph in her chest. The battle had been won. Earth had awakened the ancient power, and now it had taken its place in the stars. Humanity had survived. And in that survival, they had proven that the will to protect what was theirs, no matter the cost, was the ultimate power.